Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Car Dealership Guy Industry Spotlight. I'm your host, Sam Dark. Coming up today, learn how the largest Chevy dealer in Texas protected its inventory against the Mexican drug cartel, including the sting operation that ensued, plus how the now protected inventory better retained their customers, leaning into the industry stat that customers who service at dealerships are 74% more likely to purchase again, and how that dealership's in hot pursuit of retaining just those customers. Joining me today, Dorian Jimenez, dealer, owner, operator, Classic OKC, Oklahoma City. Chuck Stillwill, Executive Vice President, Ikon Technologies. Props to Ikon Technologies for supporting today's show. Let's get into it. So, Dorian, today you're dealer, owner, operator of a Chevy store in Oklahoma City, but you haven't always been that. You were recently GSM at a sister store in Grapevine, Texas, the largest Chevy store in the entire country. How many cars did you sell a month at that store?
You know, that store owned by the great Tom Durant, Mr. Visionary. Yeah. We got up to our heyday of selling 10,000 cars a year, new, used, fleet, and commercial. Crazy.
Wow. What year was that?
That was 2021.
Okay. And what are they selling now post-COVID? That was in the pit of COVID.
They're
ballpark.
Upwards near 11,000 to getting pretty close to getting to 12,000. 12,000
wow.
to go.
That's astonishing. So, and how many acres is the lot there?
74 acres that you sit on. And
yeah.
only one brand, Chevrolet, nothing else.
How do you create a machine that sells that many cars a month? I mean,
Tom Durant. Tom Durant is a visionary. He took a huge gamble, moving from Fort Worth, Texas on 7th Avenue, a small little store, and told his father he's going to move to Grapevine, Texas. And his father and family says, you're going to lose everything. That's too big of a risk. But it sits right next to DFW Airport. And he just built a team that he entrusted. He allowed individuals like myself to grow, try new things, build, and just create a culture that was really fun. And when you go to that store, it's unlike any other dealership that you see, the environment that we have. Their motto is relax, enjoy the difference.
Oh, wow. How many employees are there?
I knew you were going to ask something like that. Probably right now, he's just under 500 employees at that dealership.
That's astounding. One location.
One location.
And keeping track of stuff in that environment with that many acres has got to be a huge challenge.
I really felt sorry for our lot porters. Having to, because if we had the word lot party was a lot parade, and knowing keys, cars, moving this, so many hands were involved in it. And, when you do that, unfortunately, criminals are aware of that.
Yeah. So actually, let's go there. Let's talk about that. You're in one of the top 5 theft areas of the entire country. With that many units changing hand, that's trade-ins, that's vehicles sold, inventory moving around, going to body shops, going elsewhere. Theft has got to be a real thing.
We were fortunate for a while. This is pretty sad when I put it in this perspective, because in Oklahoma City, I'd have a heart attack. But we would lose 1 or 2 cars a year. So an average truck is 60, 80 grand. You're talking about losing $150,000 a year. Not a big deal at a store like that. Well, then all of a sudden during COVID, it got pretty brutal. We had 6 cars stolen by the Mexican drug cartel.
That's crazy. Tell us about that. What happened on that day when those vehicles were stolen?
The first thing is we kind of went back to some footage of our cameras, and we saw 2 individuals in the middle of the day just strolling down the lot looking at cars just like normal clients. Well, when we had the car stolen, I called the National Insurance Crime Bureau and I called our local police department. And the first thing the National Crime Bureau said is, Dorian, you don't want to know about this guy. He is a very bad person, Mexican drug cartel. He is wanted in several states and throughout several nations. And I said, and he's walking my lot? And he says, it's not good. Not good.
That's crazy. So they got away with 5 vehicles, but the police got him, it sounds like. And that actually brings Chuck Stillwill, general manager of Ikon Technologies. Dorian, what made you call Chuck and his team as it relates to this theft and the growing theft problem?
Well, when you lose 5 cars and you've got to go tell the dealer operator, boss, we just lost 5 cars. And he looked at me, he goes, go find them. So we'd already had Ikon, and I called Chuck. And that next day, Chuck brought his entire army, because we knew not only were they going to steal 5, they were going to steal anywhere from 15 to 20 more. So we had to come up with a plan, and Ikon helped us.
Chuck, take us back to that day you got the phone call from Dorian saying the Mexican drug cartels on our dealership lot. Help us keep our stuff. What went through your mind?
Well, the first thing was a little bit of a shock, obviously, but then, it soaks in, hey, that's the core of what we do, right? We help dealers protect their assets. So, this one's a little bit out of the box. What can we do? What can we do above and beyond? So we've got some incredible people here at Ikon. We mobilized the team. We said, let's get up there. Let's kind of analyze what's going on. And then let's come up with a creative solution that will solve this issue for Dorian and eliminate at least this branch of the cartel that's doing this to his dealership. So we were able to get creative. The way we came up with, planting some devices in some vehicles, basically, if you will, set up a little bit of a sting operation, right, Dorian, to address it and try to mitigate this.
This is in the pit of COVID, right? In the middle of Texas. Yeah. I'd love to take the listeners back. I've recorded prior episodes where we talk about our own challenges at Ziegler during that in the Chicagoland. And unfortunately, depending on where you are, what state you are, law enforcement response can be different, right? So in Texas, they went after it aggressively, it sounds like. So, Chuck, you and your team provided the devices and the tracking, and then the police went and stung and got the vehicles back, Dorian, right?
Yeah. So basically what it is Ikon has a great relationship with the National Insurance Crime Bureau. And so they were able to get the state authorities, because city, unfortunately, didn't want to be involved in it because they're like, well, they're not stolen. And so we told them we're tracking it. And imagine you're just sitting in your house and you're upstairs and somebody walks in downstairs, goes to your office, steals your most prized possessions and just walks out the front door. Well, that's what these drug cartels did. And they were able to get them, and the state authorities stopped all 5 vehicles, and we were able to recover them. So right there, we had that was an opportunity of losing almost $400,000 worth of inventory that we recovered.
Wow.
Yeah, so I would add one of the unique things, Sam, is we were able to, the authorities, and what we did on a regular basis was we're able to show them where those vehicles are on their laptops in their cruisers. So they're coordinating their own resources. They're not having to call us or call a third party. It's completely in their own hands. So they love that when they can take control and really go after it themselves. And I think that was part of the success here, Dorian, with why law enforcement was so eager to grab these guys.
Why not just rely on the factory installed tracking device? Because every manufacturer has a device of one sort or another. Why not rely on OnStar or whatever the tracking device is that General Motors provides, Chuck?
Well, and as Dorian knows all too well, they're able to disengage those systems, Sam, in just a matter of seconds, really. You can get on YouTube and see videos that'll tell you how to disengage the OEM system within seconds or minutes even. And so they're fairly unreliable. The other thing, law enforcement, they have to reach out to a third party. When they're talking to them, it's where the vehicle was 20 minutes ago, 30 minutes ago. They can't coordinate their own resources internally to go chase and try to grab that vehicle. So it's a lot of frustration. So they don't typically chase. That's the response you get a lot of times from law enforcement in different markets is, hey, if I got to talk to a third party, I'm not interested in that. We do a lot of training with different PD departments around the country and like Dorian said, National Insurance Crime Bureau. And this is something they shared with us is that, you got to give the authorities the power to chase these things on their own without having an interference from a third party, and they'll do it.
Interesting. How big a problem is auto theft in the auto industry today, Chuck? So we know it was horrible during COVID. We at Ziegler had our own experience. Our outcome was slightly different in the Chicagoland because there wasn't as much of a desire to go after the bad guys. Sometimes, to your point, until we coordinated our response, came up with a really tight strategy, and then we went from a ton of theft down to very little, almost none. How much of a problem is theft today, Chuck? Still.
We still see it increasing in certain markets. It's down from the COVID all-time high by about 15%, but it's still high. 40% of the thefts we see are off of dealers' lots right now, frankly. So it's a target. Anytime a vehicle's sitting for a long time in one place, it becomes a target. right? So we see that. And then there's different cities around the country that kind of ebb and flow where the theft goes higher. Those are ones where we really try to lean in with the dealers we have in those markets to help, do the extra effort to protect every asset they have, make sure that there is a relationship with law enforcement, et cetera. And there's things we do there, but it's still very, very high. There's over 1 million vehicles stolen last year alone. So
wow. So Dorian, it's interesting. You went from the number one selling Chevy dealership in the entire country, and you said, "Hey, I want ownership. I want to own this deal." And so you moved to Oklahoma City in Oklahoma, and are partners in a store there. And it's interesting. Is it based on your experience with the cartel where you're like, I don't want to deal with this theft anymore? You made a pretty quick choice about defending your inventory. What was that?
Yeah, Sam, day one, when I got the keys to this dealership, I kind of had two people on my side. I had my bank on my right side and I had Ikon on my left. And I wanted to make sure right then and there, I bought this store from a corporation and they didn't believe in it. And they said, yeah, we've had a couple of cars stolen. No big deal. But I said, no, day one, I want to have this. The sad part is last year, there's 3 dealerships beside me. The dealership next to me, they had 4 cars stolen last year. And then the store beside them had 3. I had 1 car stolen last year, and I'm still mad about this. Ikon helped me out tremendously. So they were able to track the car to a Sonic. I went to that Sonic every day for 6 days in a row. And on the 6th day, the general manager says that guy just left. He was here 30 minutes ago. And unfortunately, local authorities, they wouldn't do anything. But National Crime Insurance Bureau, they were able to track it. It went to Arkansas, and it got to a chop shop, and it's done, and I'm never able to recover it.
Wow. And the cost of that's pretty significant, right? As a dealer operator,
yeah.
Now, how many cars do you sell a month in your
we sell 100 new and used a month.
Okay, so not the volume you once were. So that one, the value of that one is outsized. What was the value of that loss? It has a loss on your.
That was a $40,000 vehicle that I lost.
Yeah, which impacts insurance, impacts your own peace of mind. So protecting it is crucial. Chuck, why do we see this separation between local authority desire to go after this stuff and the feds, including NICB and others, being more interested in pursuing this sort of theft?
Well, they see the problem and they have task force specifically designed to attack these issues. So what we have found is connecting some of those task force members with the local authorities helps to broker that relationship. The local authorities, when they know, hey, we've got a national partner that can help us now, more resources available. Every PD department around the country is stressed, for resources, if you will, funding, money, all that stuff. So we try to help as much as we can to enhance that experience when it comes to recovering a car and just partnering with them. There's a lot of great technology available that just frankly, they're not aware of. They're not aware that it's out there. They're not aware of how easily accessible this is, and we try to make it accessible for them.
You just got, Dorian, an email or a note from your insurance floor plan carrier. So it's interesting. Insurance is a significant line item expense. Theft can put that at risk. You got a note listing vehicles where they're like, hey, take special note. Tell us a little bit about that and how that impacts your strategy.
Yeah, so I'm an insurance agent myself, and I get this note from the bank, and it basically states we need an additional endorsement. And I'm looking at the endorsement, and it says, for any Chevy Silverados, any Camaros, Corvettes, Dodge Challengers, Mustangs, any kind of supercars, trucks, you've got to sign this exclusionary policy that you have to have enhanced coverage. And basically what they're saying is they know these cars are going to be stolen. It's a much higher risk on that. And that's one of the reasons I partner with Ikon, knowing that, Chevrolet sells a ton of trucks and we also sell sports cars.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that uncommon, Chuck, where insurance floor plan carriers are identifying vehicles that are at risk and saying, hey, you've got to either take special protections or we're going to actually limit coverage based on the frequency of theft?
Yeah, we're seeing it more and more. I tie it back to your previous question on, what's the reaction to theft over since COVID? That's one of the reactions is the insurance carriers and providers. They're getting much more astute at identifying, hey, these are targeted vehicles. You see a lot of the high end, the Hellcats, the Camaros, the Chevy, some of those things that are very, very targeted at dealerships. So making sure that there's extra precautions with those. And it does have a direct impact with insurance. We've seen insurance companies giving discounts because they have this kind of technology in place.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting at our auto group, anytime we get a Hellcat, no matter what device we have on it, we put it inside. Like it does not sit outside because it's not a question of if, but when that vehicle is stolen. And it's crazy, right? So physical theft is one problem, and it's definitely something that's been on the rise. It peaked during COVID. Maybe it's a little less, but it's still significant. Mm-hmm. The one area we're seeing a ton of theft in right now is identity theft and attempts to trick us out of a vehicle, even by presenting a fake cashier's check, a fake financing instrument, presuming someone else's identity. Dorian, is that something in your new dealer world there in Oklahoma City, you're seeing as well?
Yeah, I mean, I experienced it in Texas I've been in the car business for 29 years, and I experienced it for many, many years. And I see it here in Oklahoma as well. You're going to continuously see this. And now with artificial intelligence, it's even worse that you're seeing the way they're making synthetic IDs and credit bureau washing. So it's you have to, and it's sad that you got to be precautionary on it. But I mean, you're talking $50,000, $80,000, $100,000 items that you're releasing.
Yeah. So, Chuck, what should our strategy be as it relates to fraud? And bad guys trick us out of a vehicle in our dealerships. How are you able to respond and help dealerships like myself and like Dorian protect against that fraud?
Yeah, it's a great point. Listen, we're seeing about as much fraud now as we are stolen vehicles. So It went from every couple of weeks, we might get a phone call from a dealer saying, can you help us, to it's really a couple times a week, if not daily now, that we're seeing that. It is a really big problem and issue. One of the inherent things on the way we partner with dealers like Dorian is, we've got the telematics in the vehicle where we're able to recover that. Okay. So we're able to go back, unwind the deal, if you will, and go recover those vehicles for the dealers. So we have hundreds and hundreds over the last several months where we've been able to go in, help the dealer, that had bad stips or identity theft or what it is, go back and get that vehicle and get it back to the lot.
That's awesome. Have you had any instance of that, Dorian, where customers come in and provided fake IDs or fake identity and been able to recover?
Well, in Texas, we did several of that way because unfortunately, when you sell that many cars, you're gonna have some fraud. So Ikon did help us recover several of those vehicles.
So we had Grant Cardone on earlier this year. Everybody's going to get to see his interview as part of our year-end recap, January 31st. And Grant talks about how in automotive, one of the great things about automotive is we create opportunity out of chaos. Whenever there's pain in the world in automotive, we find a way to win. And it's interesting because we talk about these theft, physical theft, identity theft, fraud, all the stuff that puts us at risk with insurance, our own inventory, and truly creates an expense. Companies like Ikon and companies like yours, Dorian, innovate and find ways to deliver value to the customer and to our bottom line. So, you are actually able to take this GPS device and offer it as a sell product to customers as added value, but also kind of keep track of your inventory in the process. Tell us a little bit about what you did there, Dorian.
Yeah, keeping track of the inventory that's a big thing on it. So we set up custom reports through Ikon. I know every day at closing time, if a car leaves my lot that's an inventory car, a loaner car, I can track everything on it. I can track the battery health. I can set up perimeters on these vehicles. I can set speed alerts as well. Also with my sales staff and my technicians, all you hear all day long is somebody grab keys and they're click, 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 click. And guess what? That car's sitting on the showroom floor. You've got customers there. The horn goes off. It's in the shop. They no longer have to do that. They grab their cell phone and they look and they're able to pinpoint the exact location of that vehicle. And they know also, is the battery good health, bad health on that device. On their device, they pull up their Carfax, they pull up the vehicle description of it. They get all the information. So wherever they're at, they can show it to a client.
How does your device get battery health, Chuck?
It monitors what the power on the battery is. So we're constantly, whether it's once a day or as that vehicle drives around, we're able to see what's the status of the vehicle. Is it above? What's the voltage on the battery itself? What's the status of the vehicle? So we'll know it. We serve that up in a report then, as Dorian alluded to. So usually it's not the GM or the owner that gets the report. A lot of times it'll be the porter or the inventory manager that'll get it to make sure that they're keeping the inventory presentation ready.
So you know where your inventory is. Salespeople are able to walk customers directly to the inventory. You've got the protection of speed alerts. So if somebody's going super fast, you can have a conversation. Have you run into employees or even customers that violate that speed rule and you've had to take action on it?
Oh, yeah. We've had it in several of our loaner cars. We try to provide a service for a free loaner car, and we've had clients that have exceeded the speed on that. And I'll warn them the first time, and I will call them personally. And then the second time it's noted on the file, they're not eligible for a loan car.
How do they respond to that? I think it's a good play because you do have liability. Like in court, if you're allowing a customer to operate even your own vehicle, recklessly, you could be attached to whatever. It depends on your state law, obviously, on insurance and whatnot. But how do your customers respond if you're like, hey, I know you're going 110 miles an hour, you're out, because we don't want that risk.
Well, it's hard to respond to me because I've already sent them an email of a screenshot of every pinpoint they've been at and every speed point. So it'll show they went 40 to 60, 80 to 100. They went to those. So I send that to them first. Then I call them and I says, hey, by the way, while we're on the phone, can you go ahead and open up your email? And 99% of them go, I'm so sorry. I apologize on that. The 1% that don't, I don't want them back in my dealership.
I love that. And it probably helps employee culture too, employees knowing that, sometimes it's interesting, just people knowing you're watching can help create behaviors that are in line with what you're trying to create culture-wise. Sometimes it's the stuff that you just don't know about and you have no way of knowing that gets out of control. And just knowing that or you will find out helps to create compliance story.
Yeah.
I would add to that, Sam, we had a couple dealers or big dealer group here locally that unfortunately had a double fatality in one of their parts trucks, right?
Oh,
employee.
Yeah.
Insurance was going through the roof. So by implementing a program like this and monitoring the risk, to your point, exactly, what are employees doing? Who's speeding? What are all the corporate assets we have? They were able to get in, and I think a lot of dealers would be eligible for an insurance premium deduction based or reduction based on having this kind of technology in place. I know they did, and we've got several dealers around the country that have taken advantage of that. But to Dorian's point, they also put a program in place that said, hey, we've got a speed limit now. Anybody going over 80 miles an hour, first time, you get a verbal, second time written, third time, too bad, right? So it gives you those kinds of controls and visibility to just protect things a little bit better.
So as you're offering this as a product in finance to customers so that they can track their own vehicle, do you ever get customers that are like, I don't want you guys tracking me, like stay out of my car, right?
Our team is continuously trained. Ikon does a great job. The secret sauce behind all of Ikon is the personnel. I don't go through 6 or 7 different layers. I get the entire army that comes out. I get a staff that come out for my sales team, my technicians, my service individuals, and we're training constantly. So one of the first things we always say, it is not a tracking device. Okay. It is a connected device. And let me show you, and we'll show them the features and we'll show them the benefits. The funniest part is the people that want to hear tracking device are the moms. The moms go, oh, so I can watch my teenager. Ma'am, here's what you can do. You can set up this stuff. They love it, right? It's their Alert 360 or whatever that's called. So they love that. But everybody else, they understand it's a connected device, and they utilize it. And the data proves it, Sam. They're opening this up a minimum of 8 times a month. So 100 times a year, we're connecting with our clients.
So you offer it as an upsell in finance. How has it impacted your bottom line? What is the net impact to PVR?
Actually, Sam, I do it different because of dealing with all the stolen vehicles. I have Ikon. We call it Classic Connect, and I have it on every single vehicle.
Oh, really?
Yes, I have an addendum with that. I do window tint. I do classic connected, and if it's a truck, it's got a bed liner in it. Every single one. And 99% of my clients understand it because of the way we pitch the value and show them as part of the pricing. There's nothing hidden. We explain everything on it. I may have one client every 3 to 4 months that says, I don't want it. I'll take it off that. But everybody else, they truly see the value in it. In finance, it's an opportunity for them to upsell it from the 3-year that they can sell it to a 5-year. And we've done pretty well on the upsell for the 5-year because people see the value in that.
What's the percent upsell, would you say?
Right now, we're running about 25 to 30% upsell on it.
Okay.
And
then Chuck, at the end of the term, can customer opt to upgrade through you guys, or do they go back to Dorian to do that?
They go back to the dealer right now. Everything, we don't retail anything direct. Yeah, it's all through our dealer.
Good.
But the goal is to get to 40%, and I think we can achieve that.
Yeah. Now it's interesting. Obviously you're collecting data and information. You've got a communication tool with the customer, right? Because there's an app on their device, whether it's Android, Apple, whatever. You also have utilized this or about to utilize this as a communication channel or tool for customers to help with retention back to service. Tell us a little bit about that strategy, Dorian.
So we've been in operation for 2.5 years. So I've got 2.5 years worth of connected clients that I have. So Chuck and his team are about to roll out for us, where we're connecting with those clients from a service aspect. Oftentimes people think about spam. They think about those phone calls that say, hey, your warranty's about to expire, and they don't receive that. Well, these individuals are already part of Classic Connect. So when they hear somebody from Ikon reaching out to them, it's a trusted voice. So they're able to schedule recalls, services, just making sure everything's okay with it. And it's that connected device with them. So it makes it so much easier. And we're getting the appointments. I did it in Texas. And I think, Chuck, what did we average? 100, 150 extra appointments a month?
150 a month. Yeah.
150 appointments.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So Chuck, talk to us about the market. How are dealers utilizing this data to better connect to their customers? And Dorian's just kind of on the doorstep of doing this. He's about to launch it. How common is this in the marketplace? And what's the benefit to a dealer of using this as a way to communicate with the customers better?
Well, there's a big component with it. What we talked about so far with the inventory management and the stolen vehicles, that's kind of table stakes for GPS programs, right? Most GPS companies, they do that, right? And they do it pretty well. The biggest difference for us is frankly looking at the fixed op size. And that's where I think more dealers can lean into, and everybody's looking to increase fixed ops, right? And how do you use that telematic data for fixed ops and to benefit the fixed ops side of it? So knowing the mileage of the vehicle and being able to get that consumer connected with the dealership and keeping that connection. Dorian, you pay $500-$600 in advertising to get that customer into the dealership to buy that vehicle. And the minute you sell it, there's dozens of people going after their business, right? Independent repair facilities, oil change shops, tire shops. One of the goals with the telematics is keep that customer connected with Dorian, keep them connected with Classic and all of our customers, frankly, by using that telematic data, which is Dorian's data, right? It's his data, it's his customers. Yeah. Let's market to those individuals. Let's focus on those tickets that you want to get into the shop and the ROs you want in the shop. And let's target that and see how we can increase that. So those are some of the things that the telematics can provide. Looking at the defection rate. We can tell if a customer's gone to a Jiffy Lube, right? We can tell if a customer's gone to another dealership and share that with the dealer. So Dorian then in the text notification and our smart marketing can offer a better discount to that customer, a different approach to that customer, whatever, we'll partner with Dorian and his marketing team to say, hey, what do you want to send to that customer to try to enhance them and get them back to the dealer? One of the things I learned from Classic and Grapevine, in their service department is most consumers don't know the value they get from the dealership. Would you rather have a factory certified technician work on your vehicle or a high school kid? And so just helping enhance that, helping educate customers. We had, in setting up an appointment for a dealer last week, we had a first-time car buyer on the phone. We're scheduling an appointment for her, and she was shocked she needed to get an oil change. The dealer never explained to me I needed an oil change in the car. So younger buyers, sometimes these first time buyers, they don't even understand the routine maintenance that needs to happen on a vehicle. So that's some of the connection. And the benefit of that is that dealer in the consumer's mind, that dealer's educating the consumer and staying connected with the consumer.
So you could even push recall notifications through. We had CDK on the show recently, and they shared some service buyer attitude survey, and they actually showed that Gen Z was an interesting generation because they were not getting recalls done because they thought that they might have to pay for recalls. Now, that's astonishing. That's an education point, Chuck, to your point, that if you could push that out and notify them, let them know it's no cost, but give them an easy way to schedule it, you're going to get that customer back.
Yeah, that's true. And what's interesting is we've seen that younger generation of car buyer, they're connected to everything, right? They're connected to their doorbells, their thermostats, so they really identify better with the connected car and that kind of communication. But yeah, it's a huge opportunity for dealers to communicate with their customer base, stay connected. Like I said, the minute that car is sold and leaves the lot, there's a lot of competition for the mind share of that customer. We're trying to make sure that Dorian's customers, he's top of mind with them, and any of our dealers are top of mind.
All right, I want to talk about something that's going to make Dorian uncomfortable. We touched on it a little bit, but it's interesting. We're a large auto group, 41 stores, 4 states. We have 87 franchise agreements, so multiple different OEMs we represent. We've talked a lot on the Daily Dealer live show about what's the tension between driving loyalty back to the OEM and driving loyalty back to the auto group. It seems to me having access to connected data like you're giving, Chuck, allows a dealer to retain loyalty back to the group, which ultimately is what we want. We want to own that customer over the life cycle. Sometimes those factory installed devices and some of the programs bring them back to the OEM, but the OEM sometimes doesn't really care as much which store they go to. Correct. Dorian, you care because you're invested, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I give credit to the OEM because they do help us out with manifest lists, things like that. But case in point, client buys a car from you, but they don't live in your primary market. Right. Well, they're going to get fed from that local dealership continuously. But with Ikon partnering, and I'll tell you the secret sauce is dealerships with pre-owned inventory. If you're able to sell a pre-owned non-make of your brand, you should be able to service it, right? And so Ikon is reaching to our pre-owned clients and getting them back in so that we'll do the oil changes for them. We'll do most of the services. So we're starting to see some of that retention as well, because, I want the OEM retention, but all the other makes, I want to retain that as well.
So you've talked about some of the capabilities, Chuck, of a connected car and ways dealers can utilize it to increase retention, service business, and stay connected with that consumer. By the way, mileage. So you pull mileage as part of the data set?
We do. That's one of the primary data sets. Yeah, mileage.
That's interesting because some of the other GPS devices out there do not, right? So they're more limited. What's your connection? Are you going through the OBD? How are you connected?
No, it's the device itself. It has the technology inside the device to track mileage itself. So we have that. There is some options. We've got a lot of different options for dealers depending on their preference, but we do have the ability to read some of the DTC codes. If a vehicle throws a code and the dealer wants to be communicated of that code or communicate that to the consumer, there's capability to do that as well. So we can be very specific, if you will, on the consumer and connecting them with the drive on what the issue is. But primary piece is mileage. Yeah. A lot of this is driven off of the mileage and, on some of these high mileage services that dealers have, they can be off. They're using algorithms and they're trying to guess it with different systems and different technologies that are different companies are using out there. They can be off by I've seen as much as 40,000 miles. Right. So we're trying to catch it just in time. The event happens, the customer's communicated with it, and then we're communicating with them to get them back to Dorian's dealership or another partner's dealership.
So is it wired or is it a wireless? device?
We've got all options. Primarily for the mileage, it's a wired device. It's either an OBD2 or we've got another one that it fixes to the battery accessory terminals. That's the one that has mileage. Those get most of the data. The OBD2 obviously collects even more data for the consumer, basically for them to know stats on their vehicle and how it's performing. So that's the benefits for the consumer, and then actually getting them connected with their dealer if there is an issue with the vehicle.
That's interesting. And you provide dealers with a dealer branded app in some cases where they can brand it their own app.
Yeah, they're selling all dealers, not just some. All of them have their own app. So it's branded to them. They're selling their product. We really don't care about our logo, so to speak. This is about promoting the dealer, your brand, your connection with the customer. And to Dorian's point, we see on average consumers in his app 8 times a month. That's around the country. We see them around 8 times a month. They're in that app. And so if you can imagine that from a dealer, that's 100 times a year times 3 years, 5 years, whatever. And so it's just that impression that they're constantly getting from their dealer partner. So that's what we really push.
As we talk about the device, the dealer branded app, the ability to communicate, and then the extra layer of information that device can return back to the dealer to reinforce that connection. I'm just curious about something. You're branding it as a GPS device and you're leading with theft. Really, I would think the lead is connected car, because the biggest opportunity in most dealerships today is fixed ops revenue. The biggest need in every dealership today is staying connected to that consumer as they own that vehicle longer. There's no important call to action than being able to stay connected. Chuck, why are you not leading with connected instead of theft?
I think we indirectly we do, and we need to be more direct about it, frankly, Sam, because frankly, when we're getting into discussions with dealers or dealer groups, the primary reason they move forward with Ikon is for these things. It's for the fixed ops opportunity. It's for their brand. It's why most of them say, hey, I want every one of my customers to walk out of this store with my app in their pocket, and I know I'm going to get the retention benefit long-term going forward from that, as well as the data and some of the AI we're applying. That's why they're signing up. I think the reason a lot of dealers initially will engage is because they have a theft on the lot, and GPS has been around for a while. I like to tell people we're not your grandfather's GPS, right? We're different. We're unique. We're adding a lot more to the telematics and taking this to the next level, as opposed to just providing lot and inventory management, right? So that's the big difference here is what's the connection? How do we keep the consumer connected with the dealers? How do we increase fixed ops revenue? And how do we put your brand in front of your customers more often?
So you quoted a manufacturer's advertising campaign. I'm going to quote Seinfeld. Anybody can track a device today, or most can. There are multiple devices out there. But I think it appears to me the strength of what you found, Dorian, and what you've set up and the journey you're embarking on is the value of data and the ability to engage and retain that customer long term. That's the money. Far above and beyond those vehicles prevented theft, which, you're obviously preventing theft. You're creating revenue and finance. It's the ability to stay connected with that consumer out and above and beyond every other channel and really bring them back in.
Love the one you're with.
Yeah. I love that. That's a great quote. So Dorian, owner operator, classic OKC, Oklahoma City. Thanks for being on the show and sharing this absolute best practice. And Chuck Stillwill, Executive Vice President, Ikon Technologies, also in Dallas, Texas. Thanks for sharing a little bit about what's going on in this connected technology world and strategies for increasing revenue and retention, and all the while protecting those vehicles along the way. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.